starting with Dan.
Great. Well, thank you very much for including me here. My name is Dan Cooper. I graduated in 2015 from the biochemistry division of the nutrition program. Once I completed my PhD, I moved over to Duke University doing a postdoc in cancer biology, so kind of exploring some of the nutritional aspects of cancer onset and treatments. And since that time, I've transitioned to a position in industry that's known as a medical science liaison position, where I am currently studying biomarkers in immuno-oncology in the clinical space. I would say that my most memorable the most memorable piece of the PhD program was the collaborative environment with the other students and faculty that I encountered at UNC. And happy to elaborate more, but as an introduction, that's where I'll stop.
Thanks. What I'd like to do is have everyone just kind of give their general statements first, and then we'll have some time for discussion and allow you to all kind of ask questions. So maybe if we take the first half hour for kind of the presentations from each of the panelists, and then leave the second half hour for questions and discussion. So next, could we hear from Jen?
Hi, my name is Jen Zerker. I graduated in, gosh, now I gotta remember, 2009. I was at UNC from 2004 to 2009, and I was in the area of interventions and policy. I completed my dissertation working in the rural part of Eastern North Carolina in a community-based participatory research intervention, and was able to create a project as an offshoot of that. I probably have had a pretty different experience than a lot of others. I actually completed, I collected all the data for my dissertation and left North Carolina in 2007. My partner had never moved with me, so I went back to California where I was living at the time, or where he was living at the time, and I did all of my writing from afar, and I do not recommend that to anyone because I think it probably took me an extra year because of not having the supportive environment that I would have had I stayed in Chapel Hill. And so I would say in terms of most memorable, one of the things I would say is just really that supportive environment of both the faculty and the students, and having people right there ready and willing to talk to you about what you need to do next. So I actually, when I finished my PhD, I had my first child 6 weeks after I defended my dissertation. So I actually chose to take some time home with my kiddo, and I taught part-time during online during the next 5 years, I guess. I did a postdoc at Purdue in the middle of that, took some more time off before I started my current position. I am in my 6th year at Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville. I started as the program director for their undergraduate program in nutrition, and I am currently the director of our graduate coordinated program in nutrition and dietetics. So I have a lot of administrative responsibilities at this point related to that. But my research focus has turned to covering a lot of student-based things as well. And I focus on interprofessional education with my research at this point.
Great, thanks, Jen. Melissa?
Hello, I graduated from UNC in 2016, and I was in the nutrition epidemiology department. I was fortunate to have Linda Adair, who's on the panel, as my doctoral advisor. My favorite thing about being a student at Chapel Hill, like I have this memory of being in a doctoral seminar and really taking studies that had been peer reviewed and published and interrogating them, like deconstructing them, and really feeling the weight of what it meant to put together a good study and how things that had slipped through peer review could still be critiqued. I think that's a really important lesson for a scientist, and it's something that I still use in my role as a non-nutrition scientist today. So immediately after graduation, I transitioned to a role as a city research scientist at the health department for New York City. There, I spent 2 years there working in the Bureau of Chronic Disease Research and Tobacco Control. It was a very applied role where I was literally taking data from the city to and analyzing it in order to evaluate programs and policies that had been put into effect. And then the inferences drawn from those analyses would then be fed up to administrators, policymakers, so that they could decide what was effective or design new programs for the city. I realized towards the end of my time there that I was more excited about continuing to hone my technical skills. I didn't think that was being, I didn't think I was taking full advantage of them at the health department, and I was very excited by the world of data science. And meanwhile, I could see that there was a lot of movement happening outside of the health department, and I really wanted to be a part of that. And so I did a boot camp, which is meant for people with PhDs who wish to transition from academic or research roles into industry, and got really caught up in the world of machine learning. And so now I actually work as a data scientist in an organization that's more tech than research, and our clients are people who are trying to change education across the US. And we do that through influencing politics. And so that's what I've been doing for the last year and a half. I'm happy to elaborate further on any part of my experience later on.
Thank you. Pasquale?
Hello, I'm Pasquale. I graduated from UNC in 2016, along with Melissa. Melissa was in my little cohort. We were also in within epidemiology focus, or concentration rather. I went directly into a faculty position at NYU School of Medicine, or NYU Langone Health, and that's where I've been ever since. Yeah, I just had my 4-year, I just passed my 4-year mark, and yeah, it was great. It was a great transition. At the time I was debating, I also had an offer to take a postdoc, and I was debating between the two, so I could talk about that if anybody wants to pick my brain about that later. But I ended up taking the faculty position, and it's 100% research on the what they call the scholar track, so the non-tenure track, which I think was a really good fit for me. And this year, I've been doing research mostly on food policy and food insecurity. I've actually been collaborating with Lindsay Jacks, who's on this call, on one project recently. We're not collaborating on something to use for our different projects. And I got my first grant as a PI. This year I started a K award, which is to establish more independence. So I could talk about that a little bit too, how I started off a little bit more under the wing and mentorship of one person, but now establishing some more research independence. And yeah, I think that covers all of it. And then as far as my experience and what I enjoyed about it at UNC, I definitely echo what Melissa said about critical thinking skills. I mean, I'm in academia, so it's even not more relevant, but relevant in that specific way. And I would say the number one thing was the people, like Melissa, and I think our cohort was pretty tight. We were able to be literally in close proximity to each other, which is a little bit surreal to think about right now, obviously. but to bounce ideas off each other and just talk about our research. That was a great opportunity. Something that I actually struggled with in my first year being in a faculty position, was not having that type of support system. I had to find a new one, and also find a way to do science without it a little bit, to a certain extent. And then, yeah, I also had a great advisor at the time, Penny Gordon Larson. So she was really supportive, including helping me to explore other non-academic employment options, which I obviously didn't take, but she was a great resource as well. So I think that's it for me.
Great, thank you. Monica?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me. I came in with one of the larger cohorts at the time with Dr. Cooper and Dr. Jacks in 2010 and graduated in 2017. During that time, I actually worked with two faculty members, initially Marcy Campbell, who's no longer with us and unfortunately did pass during my time at UNC. But the majority of my time and training I spent with Dr. Deborah Tate. And so I had the privilege of being exposed to both community-based participatory research methods, really being thrown right into the field, which is the experience I was looking for, but also being exposed to Dr. Tate's weight control intervention portfolio. And so, definitely a different sort of path, but also one that was rigorous for both investigators that I worked with. In terms of my path post UNC, I think I took a tiny bit of time off just to recover post dissertation, because that is a really intense phase, but transitioned into doing a little bit of research and teaching at Winston-Salem State University, which isn't too far from the Chapel Hill area, and then quickly transitioned into a postdoc at Duke University, working with their Center for Social Equity and really working with race scholars and diving more into that work. Much of what I do, although behaviorally centered and focused on obesity treatment through lifestyle change, certainly has a health disparity slant to it. So working with scholars who are focused on race during my postdoc years, and of course being exposed to a different environment, even though it's just down the road, was certainly beneficial. Currently, I'm in year 2 of a tenure track position at the University of Connecticut. And so I'm within their nutritional sciences department and enjoying the process so far, though there are many years to go. And it's challenging, but in ways that I expected and felt, mainly prepared for as much as you can going through these different experiences. So I think just ending with my most memorable experience at UNC, number one is my cohort. I feel like it was really great to come in with a big group of people, all really focused on our end goal of gaining expertise and excellent training. But it also meant that you had this group of support and people who are going along at the same time as you and experiencing some of the same challenges, same successes. So I found that really great. And then, of course, as I look back now and think about the work that I'm able to conduct at this moment, really the excellent training that I feel like I got during the program. It just honestly really shows itself in the type of preparation that I had and what I'm able to accomplish now and the type of work that I'm able to do with confidence, as I'm kind of at the same point as Pasquale, really establishing greater independence as an investigator. My training there has been wonderful. So your peers will really matter, and having a cohort with you is really, really important. So I'll leave it there and turn it back over to Dr. Adair.
Thanks. And Lindsay, have you joined us from across the Atlantic?
I have. Last year I was in Nepal, and the year before that I was in India and had cops knocking on my door. So it's nice to be like in a country where none of that is happening. We just have a crazy infectious strain of COVID circulating. But yeah, I'm Lindsay. I'm joining from Scotland, where I moved in the middle of this pandemic to join my partner who is based here. And prior to that, I was an assistant professor at Harvard for 4 years and was kind of about to submit my associate professor application, but then COVID hit and for personal reasons decided to take a position over here at the university. So great to join all of you, and just congratulations on getting to this point with UNC. I love joining this panel every year and raving about UNC because it really was a highlight of my life to date. Great times there, and continue to work with several people who were in the UNC cohort. It's really, as others have said, you're just kind of joining this amazing group of really smart people who are super collaborative in a way that I haven't seen at any other university. And you just kind of always have that network. You know, we graduated, when did we graduate, Dan? It was a while back. 6 years ago, I guess, 5 or 6 years ago, and still keep in touch with lots of people, you know, connecting my current students with other faculty. I've sent some people over to Dan to talk about industry work, and work really closely with Lindsay Taylor, who's on the faculty at UNC now on projects related to sustainable diet. So I just think that UNC, compared to all of the other schools I've been at Emory, Cornell, UNC, Harvard, and now over here. But UNC really stands out as being a very collaborative place. So I definitely agree with others who have talked about that. So yeah, I graduated in Dan's year and worked with Beth Meyer Davis and Barry Popkin primarily, and both of whom have just been really supportive and great mentors even after leaving. Barry and I still talk regularly, and he still is just a major mentor throughout my career. And yeah, so after UNC, I did a postdoc at Emory briefly for about a year, working with Venkat Narayan in their Global Diabetes Research Center, and then shifted up to Harvard for a tenure track position, which I mentioned I was there for about 4 years. And now I'm a senior lecturer over in the UK. So if anyone is interested in kind of hearing more about the UK system, happy to talk about that. I'm still learning the ropes. It's very different than the US system, but better and worse in some ways. So happy to chat about that. But yeah, nice to meet all of you and look forward to hearing your questions.
Great, thank you so much. I think that's all of our alumni panelists. We have several current students that have joined us, and please tell us about your work and also information on what you think is going to be of greatest value to those who are considering coming to UNC. And then after that, we'll open it up to everyone's questions. So let's start with Chris.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm Christopher Nicholas. I'm a 4th year in the program. And of course, as you know, we no longer have tracks, but I work with Picky Bentley, Amanda Thompson, and Linda. And my research generally focuses on, I look at food environments in the Galapagos and understanding how behavior on the human dimension side, but then also how place on the environment side work together to shape diet and health. And I'll say what I think would be the most important for me is the collaboration, but in the spirit of breadth versus depth. And what I mean by that is I'm interested in everything, so many fields. And when I came to UNC, I thought that would have been a struggling point, and I would be kind of constantly pushed towards specializing. And I remember early on, Linda, I don't know if you remember this, but when the first time I met you, and I was, and my Peggy was telling me to consider the nutritional epidemiology concentration, and I met with Linda, and I said, I don't know that I want to do nutritional epidemiology, and I was super scared because that's almost your baby in so many senses. And then I remember you paused for a long time, and then you told me, well, you don't have to do it. You can just you really want to do spatial methods, so do spatial methods, make that one of your focuses. And that's really, I feel like embodies a lot of my experience here. I work with professors in geography, anthropology, health behavior, and so the methodology that I'm able to specialize in, I don't really have to sacrifice breadth while still specializing and doing an in-depth PhD. So that's generally where I am, and I can talk more about that process and picking classes and advisors as well.
Great, thank you. Kyle?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Kyle Bussey, and I'm in my second year in the PhD program, and I work with Alice Amerman. Currently, I'm working to develop a healthy food catering venture in Nairobi, Kenya, with some collaborators there, with trying to leverage entrepreneurship to increase access to healthy foods and also increase access to income generating opportunities for adolescent girls. And I guess the thing that it's funny. I think one of the memories that sticks out to me most is really similar to Chris's, and it was 2 years ago. It was this event when I was applying and interviewing, and it was actually Beth Meyer Davis at Topo, which I think is where we had dinner that year. I remember talking to her and expressing something similar to Chris, saying, well, so I came in with training in epidemiology and hoped to continue to use those skills and develop those skills further. But I also had a lot of interest in interventions, which is how I came to work with Alice Amerman. And I remember telling Beth Meyer Davis, or kind of expressing my concern that I was going to, have to at some point choose one path or the other. And I was really pretty terrified of that decision because I didn't really know which I preferred. And I remember her looking at me almost with this like bemused look and saying, you can do both. And I remember that was that was such a relief to hear that, and was a really big part of why I chose UNC, because I do feel like there is opportunity to pursue not just one interest, but multiple. And the department possesses such a broad range of expertise and ample opportunity for students to pursue multiple interests. So I think I anticipate moving forward that will continue to be one of the most important parts of my experience here. And certainly when I leave, I think I'll look back and think back fondly on that conversation with Beth Meyer Davis and Topo.
Great, thanks, Kyle. Natalia?
Hi everyone, I'm Natalia Rebolledo. I'm originally from Chile. I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate in the department, and I'm also doing the EPI minor. And okay, I agree with everything that Kyle and Chris have said. Like when I arrived here, I only had experience with dietary data, collecting it, not analyzing it. So I have learned to work with that, like a lot of methods that I think they are going to be useful for my career. And I also have been learning to deal with like other type of like big data, and that has been great. But besides that, I also had the opportunity to collaborate with people in, like I didn't only want to focus on that in epidemiology. I always been interested in nutrition policy. So I've been able to collaborate with people in the health behavior department. Like I learned how to create a randomized controlled trial, which I never imagined I was going to do that. And I also I work with Barry Popkin and Lindsay Smith-Haley also, and they always have been very useful and open for me to explore other areas. I also took classes in the health policy and management department, which has been very useful to like get more into the methods that I needed to learn. So yes, and I also agree with the alumni that like the environment here is great. Like I always felt very supported by the teamwork that I have, my cohort mates, like even the students of other years. Like we're always have, well, when you can meet in person, we are having fun, schedule meetings. So yeah, it is a very welcoming environment for everyone.
Thanks everyone for your insights. Now I'd like to open it up to your questions. Please, ask any questions you may have about the curriculum, about what it's like to be a graduate student in Chapel Hill. If you want more details from any of our alumni panelists, please go ahead and ask. This is your time to find out as much as you can about our program to help you make a decision.
I will start with a question, if that's okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kaylin. Thank you for giving your overviews. It's really nice to hear everyone's experiences in the program. I am curious to learn more about, for whoever would like to answer, what your working experience was like with your mentor, what that relationship was like.
Maybe I'll kick it off and then allow other alumni to jump in. So the working relationship, I think first to understand, what is the funding situation that you might be walking into, because part of how you're supported, at least financially through a stipend, might be connected to some of their active work, likely is. And so in terms of the relationship, you certainly have a professional one where you are conducting the work and entrenched in the work of that lab. So I can't express enough how important it is that you are genuinely interested in the work of the principal investigator that you'll be with, whether that's particular methodologies they might be using, a particular topic or outcome. For me, that was really obesity, nutrition, physical activity that's important to you, making sure that fit is there, because a lot of your working relationship will center around that work and what they have going on. So there's that professional level, but there's also this mentorship level, of course, that's deeply intertwined with that. So having those regular conversations about your progress, about your goals, and what you hope to achieve, and letting that be informed by your advisor, who's going to be your primary mentor and eventual dissertation chair, for me was, just a regular part of the lab and the, experience I had with them. So that's going to vary, the amount of contact you have with your advisor will vary by lab and just how they operate and what works well for the lab. But I'll keep it there very basic and maybe let some others jump in to talk about their mentor relationship.
I can chime in quickly. This was a really good part of my experience, and I think a big reason it was positive is because my work style fit really well with my mentor's teaching style or mentorship style. So I think one of, if not the most important decision you can make is your choice of mentor, which can change also when you're there. I don't know how easy that is, but I think that was a really important part of my experience because, for example, at the time, at least, now it's not so much true, but I really liked to be micromanaged, and the person who was my mentor was a micromanager, which I say that, it sounds like a negative thing, but I say that in a positive way. I liked the guidance, especially early on. And I think for other people, you might hear that and want to run for the hills. And there were other people who really wanted an open playing field and not to be someone knocking on your door, emailing you all the time, or breathing down your neck. So I think in addition to wanting to work on the actual work, like Lonnie was saying, I think having that fit in your work styles is also really important, and to ask those types of questions beforehand.
I can chime in quickly. I echo what everyone else has said so far, but I'd also add that a big part of job or life satisfaction is actually being comfortable with the person who you're being supervised by, or you're tasked to work with, or you're being advised by. And this is true in grad school, but it's also true after the fact. So one of the big draws for me going to UNC was actually speaking with the students and understanding their experiences with their mentors. And it was that led me to choose to work with Linda Adair. Everyone had great things to say about her. I was substantively aligned in terms of interests, but also I knew that I would find a supportive work environment with her. And just like zooming out, I did get offers for postdocs, and it was like I was substantively aligned with all of them, but that the risk of being in a place where I couldn't actually work well with the supervisor was one that also played into my decision as to whether or not to pursue those opportunities. And I also said that one of the great things about my working relationship was the ability to pursue interests that weren't necessarily squarely within the warehouse of my supervisor. So I am from Jamaica. I wanted to work in the Caribbean, and I had a mentor who was comfortable allowing me to go do research in Barbados for a summer. A paper resulted from that. And that's not something that everyone would necessarily be open to. So really think about what it is that you want from that experience and whether or not that's something that you'd be able to nurture with the people who you're interested in working with.
Thanks. Other questions?
Hi, my name is Minnie Herrick, and I'm a registered dietitian and international board certified lactation consultant in the Air Force. I have a little bit of a different situation because I am getting a scholarship through the Air Force to complete my PhD. So I was super excited to hear Kyle and Christopher, how you were talking about the ability to do a lot of things because I have a lot of interests as well. But in my situation, I'm only allowed for 3 years to complete my PhD. So I'd just like to know your thoughts on that timeline and any advice that you might have in order to complete that in a timely manner. Thank you.
I can sorry. When you say that, is that being able to pursue all the interests within the 3 years and get the PhD done?
Yeah, so I think like you all, nutritional epidemiology would be my primary focus. Maternal and child health, obviously, with my background is my primary area of interest. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get everything done that maybe is my dream, but as far as a timeline, how do you think that that would work out?
I think that you can get it done for sure. 3 years, you'll be full steam ahead. I think for all 3 years, particularly with coursework, and if you want to engage with additional projects. And to link back to the last question, I think it's really important, and now while you have the chance, and then while you're here as well, to talk to your advisor about these plans. With my advisors, I had like Pasquale said, I wanted the open field. I wanted to just be led free to frolic in the fields and figure out how I'm going to knit these things together. But I had a very wonderful relationship. I have a very wonderful relationship where I got a lot of finger wagging every now and again, sort of redirecting. You know, Christopher, that might take too much time. Christopher, why don't you consider doing it the smaller part of that side project? So I think having that open line of communication with your prospective advisors would be the best way to make sure you can get it all done within the 3 years.
Yeah, I thought that was a great response. I guess I would just add, well, I would echo that. Yeah, number one is be really clear with your advisor about this timeline and the skills that you want to be gaining through your work, and being really quite strategic. I think about, first of all, you're focused on completing your dissertation, because when it's all said and done, that's that is what you're doing in your PhD program, is trying to complete and defend your dissertation. And especially for you, it's on a timeline. And then once you kind of have prioritized that, I think considering what outside of this work do I have time for, and then filling it in. I think it can be easy to quickly say yes to a number of different small projects, all of which are small, but when added together really can kind of crowd out some, maybe your dissertation work, which in your case will need to be the priority. So focusing on that, I think another thing I'd say, and it seems to be aligned pretty well with your interests, but if you're doing it in 3 years, it's probably you're going to be doing secondary data analysis, because primary data collection very possibly would take more time than I think maybe you'll have in your 3 years. But I think fortunately there again, there's just such a breadth of expertise among the faculty, many of whom are working on longitudinal data collection and have for many years, Linda being one of them. And so there are a lot of people in our department who have access to secondary data, and you could potentially be collaborating or gaining skills through working on them on a number of different analyses.
Any other advice?
I will say, since you're already a registered dietitian, check if you can skip some classes. Like because like in my case, I couldn't, like I'm also a dietitian, but since I took like classes in Chile, I couldn't skip like or nutrition 600 or 620. But I am sure that you already took like those classes to get your degree. So you can save like at least like a lot of time in the first year, and you can take like more classes in other departments if you want to learn more about other areas.
Thanks. Other questions?
I have a question. So, hey everyone, my name is Rowan. I actually have two questions and I'm going to say them both because I feel like they're kind of like in a similar group. So my first question is, what was a challenge that you didn't expect going into the program, or a challenge that isn't spoken about too often? And my second question is, for those students that are first generation or students of color, how did you feel like the department supported students of color or students that weren't really familiar with like how to navigate grad school in the first place?
I can jump in there. Challenges. Well, I don't have a background in nutrition at all. I remember I Googled, yeah, it was a rough start, and I had to figure it all out as we went along. And resources, why, and this related to moving. I moved down to North Carolina from New York City. I'm originally from Trinidad. I grew up in South Florida, so all the spaces that I occupied were very diverse. And then coming to North Carolina was interesting. And I'll start by ending with I love it here, and I wouldn't mind settling here in the long term. But I say that because there's so many resources at the departmental level, within the School of Public Health. Colleen Cipriani is one of the deans of inclusion. She's from Trinidad, and she's works with departments and the school in general to offer resources and groups, and the IME, Minority Excellence. I forget what the I stands for. Natalia, if you Initiative. Yeah, they're right around the corner, and they have so many workshops and resources, and just building that community. Once you find the space to build the community, it, particularly coming from these sort of backgrounds, it makes it a lot easier to bridge into it and feel like you can handle the course load or the research, whatever is kind of giving you the most trouble.
I'll just say quickly, I had a little bit similar experience in that, well, literally I also came from New York City, but moved with my then boyfriend, now husband, and I was worried about North Carolina not being an open place. And I did have like one or two bad experiences on that front, but I guess that people don't normally talk about. But overall, it's a very progressive area, and I felt very comfortable and actually miss it a lot now.
Yeah, I moved here in 2016, and I started the PhD after the election. So I also was worried about like moving to North Carolina and like the southern states. But like I will say Chapel Hill, Carrboro, Durham, and Raleigh are like a bubble. I've never had like that a bad experience outside, like, well, inside the triangle. And yeah, as Chris said, like the initiative for minority excellence is very good in the graduate school. You can bond and meet a lot of interesting people, and like the Gillings is starting to change. They are starting a process to change the like stuff related to like disparities and race differences and racism here. So I think it is good. Things are changing. But yeah. Oh, an unexpected challenge. Yeah, I agree. The first year was like but it was very intense, like in course load. But like once you finish it, it's very good.
I guess I'll jump in as person coming from a background, or no one in my family has ever completed a PhD before. So I guess from that aspect, I'm first gen, but I'm also a first generation American. So, you know, I love seeing the Caribbean representation here. My parents are also hailing from the Caribbean. And so I think that in and of itself is a challenge, because you don't know what you don't know about navigating. And I think one of the, I don't want to say unexpected or unspoken, but I would say it's an expectation that at some point, you know, you'll be going after your own funding source to support your research, to potentially support, you know, the years of education and being a student at UNC. So again, I think this mostly relates to me being first gen and not even knowing to ask that question about, you know, the funding support. You know, really, what are the expectations of your advisor? You know, how many years can they actually carry you in terms of, you know, paying for you and your stipend and whatnot? And then at what point are they going to expect you to potentially take on that role through grantsmanship, which usually needs to be done at least a year in advance to send out applications like that. So I think as you're considering your timelines of when you would like to graduate, also think about the timelines of the funding that may or may not be available, because that will, of course, color your experiences. So, you know, I definitely agree with Natalia in that I loved being in North Carolina every day. My husband and I say, you know, when can we move back to North Carolina, even though we've only been in the North for a little bit, but I hail from upstate New York. So actually going below the Mason-Dixon into the southern states increase the diversity of the people that I would interact with. I was coming from a very snowy place. And so I just loved being in North Carolina and really would go back without hesitation. So don't feel like you have to live in Chapel Hill, even though I loved it, one of the best college towns I lived in. But I also love Durham and Raleigh as places to live. So do think about the life you want to live outside of the program, because that'll just balance you, I think, as a student, to make sure that you're still well-rounded and can enjoy the experience fully of what that area has to offer. And I wouldn't worry so much about the politics. When I got there, I believe there was a Democratic governor, and things have shifted over time. But again, those areas, Chapel Hill, Raleigh, Durham, tend to be really progressive, you know, in comparison to other parts of the state. So I really didn't find, you know, too many challenges outside of what I'm experiencing here in the North. So for students of color, you know, your experience might largely be the same of what you already have experienced in your educational track. But I think a note for success is making sure you do connect with faculty of color and more advanced students of color. I saw someone put in the chat, Minority Student Caucus was really helpful for me in that regard early on, to kind of find my crew and be able to find people who also had strategies that were helpful. But also the Office of Student Affairs within Gillings was helpful to navigate and know what policies are there to protect, to support, and just good people who, again, help you navigate any unexpected challenges that might come up, as everybody's situation will likely have some uniqueness to it.
Thanks so much, everyone. Do we have other questions for any of those folks who are interested in lab science? Do you have any questions about, you know, the kind of laboratory experience or the NRI? Okay, in the absence of questions, do any of our panelists have things that they felt like they didn't have a chance to say earlier and would like to jump in with now?
I had a question for Pasquale. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but what made you decide not to do a postdoc, and what career path would that entail then? Because with you still having a faculty position, how would it be different?
Well, you nailed the pronunciation. I the short glib answer is that it was for personal reasons. I also come from, I'm first gen, both my parents immigrated here, all of our families up in lower New York. And the expectation was that I move back and live within 15 minutes of them. That I didn't fully make that happen, but yeah, that was the big reason why I pursued the faculty position, because it was in New York City and they all live close to there. So in addition to that, if I was just making it without that consideration, I would say, I don't know. This is a question I've heard people talk about, and I don't think any of the answers have ever been really satisfactory. I think I would have done a postdoc if I was really confused about what type of research I still wanted to do, maybe like the substantive area, or if I felt like I didn't have potentially have enough publications from the doctoral program, of which I had a couple when I graduated. So if you really want time to figure things out, either or to build your CV for any reason, or the other reason I might pursue a postdoc is if the opposite is if you have everything figured out and you want time to pursue something like an independent research grant, like the K award I mentioned earlier. If you know you want to do that right off the bat, you can start preparing for that in that first year and work that out with whoever's hiring you for that postdoc position. I've heard that it's really good for that. I came to that decision just later on. And then the part that people speak about less frequently out loud is the pay, of course. You get paid a lot less as a postdoc and a lot more, yes, a lot more as faculty, right? The salary was very appealing. So those are all factored into it.
Lauren, I'll just jump in and add as well that different subfields have different sort of approaches to this. And in the basic sciences, it's really rare to get a faculty position straight out of a PhD. Postdocs are pretty standard on that, and so I think in more population based, I see a lot more opportunities to go right into a faculty position, but that's a pretty rare thing in a laboratory based discipline.
Hi, everyone. I'll jump in with a question. My name is Kelsey, and I'm currently at the University of Washington. And my question is kind of along the lines of the postdoc, but just as the PhD comes to a close and like thinking through the next steps, kind of how has that been, I guess, for current students as well as alumni in terms of thinking about, career possibilities and processing that.
I guess I'll chime in a little. So I'm not sure how the curriculum has changed. We had a course where we talked about that, the elements of being a scientist. Linda, do you still have that course?
Yep, we still have it. Yep.
Okay, so we not only learned about writing, about grant writing and completed our own grants, but there was also some conversation about how these would be applied and what life would look like on the other side in terms of how your time might be spent or be required to spend in different types of positions. But I say for me personally, I vividly remember having a conversation with Marcy Campbell, who was my advisor, and sitting on the couch in her office and talking to her about what I was going to do and where I was at in my life and what I had learned in my PhD, and what I had learned about myself and what I wanted afterwards. And she was very frank with me about what my options were. And, I guess there are a lot of options. And so it was really nice to I guess have that opportunity to both learn about them and feel supported in being able to choose what it was best for me, even if it didn't look like what I had come in thinking I was going to do, or what the rest of my cohort was planning to do, and so on. So.
And a piece of advice I remember giving to Malicia was to find people out there that are doing what you think you would like to do, and then let faculty members and other people use their networks to connect you with those people and learn about their career trajectories and what they did and what their jobs are like, just so that you get more exposure to different kinds of options. But to really rely on the kind of networks, because amongst the faculty in the department, we just have so many connections with people all over the world. And it's interesting in hearing from our alum that a lot of those connections are being perpetuated, and we're continuing to work together. So really taking advantage of the incredible networks to help you see what the possibilities out there are. Most people will be graduating with multiple publications that are going to launch them into their careers. So you really just take advantage of all the learning opportunities that are available.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. I'm Lorena Saavedra from Peru, and I think I have a question for Natalia. Natalia, in your case that you are from Chile, what do you think that your experience in UNC allowed you to do in your country?
Like, you think like if I was able to keep collaborating with them, or in which way?
For example, collaboration, or maybe you learned there some things that you probably won't learn in your country.
Oh no, definitely. There was no way that I was going to learn some of the stuff that I've learned here. Like they don't have like good programs in nutrition or nutrition epidemiology, particularly in Chile. And like Linda, I know you're here, but like Linda's class teach me so much that I think is going to it is going to be key for my future. I'm planning on going back and work as a academic in Chile, where in University of Chile. And I have learned so much. Like I didn't have any idea of dietary patterns, or like energy adjustment methods, usual intake. I didn't have any idea of that, and like UNC has given me so much tools to like keep growing and like incorporate that in my career. And about collaborations, I am during my I continue collaborating with them since like year one. So like I've been using data from the cohort that I used to work in Chile, like the dietary data that I used to collect. I was able to analyze it and wrote cool papers about it, and even use the data for my dissertation. And so yeah, if you keep communicating with them, you are allowed to like continue working and contributing to your country. So yeah.
I might just comment on that too. Just speaking of working with cohort members, Lindsay, Taylor, and I continue to work with two people. Carolina Batiste, actually, we just published a paper that came out last week with her. She's down at INSP and was, I think, 2 years ahead of Lindsay and I in terms of cohorts, but was a close friend and is now kind of a long-term collaborator. And Dahlia Stern, who is also from Mexico City, and I think a year below me, I continue to collaborate with her, like go hiking with her down in Mexico City. And she came up to Harvard and did a Lowndes Scholar program in cardiovascular disease. So I think that, again, going back to the UNC network and collaborations, no matter where you're from, those things kind of continue moving ahead into the future.
Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour. Jonathan, would you like to close? Is there anything that you want to say to everyone?
So I again, just want to thank our panelists and our students for participating in this today. I think we've been able to hear a lot of great information and things that have made the difference for you in your career as well as your academic journey here. I will mention to all of the participants that are visiting with us this week, if you haven't already, I just want to reemphasize the importance of getting together with the faculty members that you're interested in a one-on-one Zoom meeting. If you need any help connecting with them or with other faculty members or with other students, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to do that. I also would like to encourage any of our panelists, alumni and or current students, or if there are other faculty members or students who are joining us today, just to kind of listen in on the panel. If you're interested, please feel free to share your contact information in the chat with our prospective students. I know sometimes there are questions that maybe you're not comfortable asking in a large group setting like this, that you might want to reach out to someone individually. So, I would ask if anybody is comfortable doing that to go ahead and share that in the chat. And again, if anybody would like to connect with others outside of this, I'm happy to do so.
Well, thanks everyone. On behalf of the doctoral committee, it's really been great to meet you all. If you have any further questions, feel free to get in touch with us. We will be working over the next weeks or so, making final admissions decisions. So as just echoing Jonathan's advice, make sure that you're connecting with faculty members that you're most interested in working with, because we do only admit those students for whom we have a funding source and a good match between a mentor and a student. And as you heard, that's a really important relationship in your doctoral training. But thanks everyone for your participation. We really appreciate the time that you spent trying to learn more about us, and the time that our panelists have spent sharing their insights with you. Steve, do you want to add anything? You're on mute.
I think by now I would have that down. Thanks as well. Just one note: if you're pretty clear you want to join us at UNC, do kind of communicate that fairly soon. There's an opportunity for some university-wide fellowships that have some prestige to them, and we'd be happy to nominate for some of those. No pressure on that at all, but that is an opportunity if you're kind of at that decision point already. But thanks to all, and it's great to see some of our alums as well. And thanks so much for taking your time.
Thanks everyone. Stay healthy. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.